Are you ready to take your business to the next level? Every day there are countless books and articles that are published offering the key on how to make your business a success. It's easy to feel overwhelmed trying to keep up and run your business. That's why Deb Creer created the Business Power Hour. Keep up on the latest trends, best practices, and techniques for how to make your business a success. Let the Business Power Hour do the heavy work for you.
Good morning, good morning. I am Deb Creer, and I am passionate about giving professionals the tools that they need to make themselves and their businesses as successful as possible. And I'm so excited. We are talking to somebody who is in the UK today. I love that we get to talk with people from around the world. Ain't technology grand? We get to have so much fun with it. So please join me in welcoming Pieter de Villiers to our program today. Welcome, Pieter.
Hi, Deb. Great to be here. Thanks for having me.
Great. Well, let me tell people a little bit about you, and then we will dive into this because this is going to be a subject that we're going to talk a lot about. So Pieter de Villiers is CEO and co-founder of Macanta Software Ltd. And a small business systems and automation expert. He works with business owners to design, systematize, and automate their business in order to free them up from the day-to-day and help cure their business from the cancer of 2-minute tasks. Pieter is the author of the #1 Amazon International bestseller, Barefoot Business: 3 Key Systems to Attract More Leads, Win More Sales, and Delight More Customers Without Your Business Killing You. He is also one of the co-authors and organizers responsible for bringing together expert contributors on 3 continents to produce another Amazon #1 international bestseller called Franchising Freedom. Pieter was born and raised in South Africa, moving to the UK in 1997. He is husband to Sophie, a medical oncology consultant, and papa to the awesome Amélie and Olivia. Pieter has a passion for hi-fi, music, books, single malt whisky, and Smoker BBQs, after my heart here down in Georgia. But he doesn't like wearing shoes. Now that really makes you after my heart. I love the whole pandemic thing because I don't have to put shoes on. So again, Pieter, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you.
Great. Well, I always like to know how my guests got to where they are today. So give us a little bit more detail and tell us how you discovered that this is your passion in life.
Yeah, it was a bit of a long-winded route, but then I suppose for most business owners, it's not really a straight line. Mm-hmm. So I left school, didn't do a great deal for a couple of years, was going to do electronic engineering, never enrolled, and then ended up here in the UK. As many Antipodeans did at the time, ended up running a bar and a restaurant for about 5 years. Mm-hmm. And then after that, through some moving about, I ended up actually qualifying as an electrical contractor, set up my own business doing that, okay, and then transitioned that into home automation. But home automation before we had Alexa and everything like that, that makes it easy. So that business, I ended up using systems a lot in that business. And in particular, at the time, we used Infusionsoft, but much more for systems and process management rather than for marketing automation. And then when that business eventually in around 2014, that business failed. So I had to close the doors on that. And then just sort of looked up and thought, well, what skill sets have I developed? What can I go and do? Mm-hmm. And I started just doing Infusionsoft configuration for other small businesses around the same lines as what I used it myself. So more for the system side and process management. And then I got involved in what was a very early version of what is today Macanta, which was an add-on for Infusionsoft. And then in February 2020, we actually launched as our own standalone platform. And I just, through that journey, just got more and more obsessed to a certain extent with finding better ways of automating things and creating systems in businesses. And it's really with a drive to free the people in those businesses up to do the work that they are uniquely skilled to do. Because unfortunately, businesses are filled with stuff that needs to be done that
Mm-hmm.
everyone is overqualified for and nobody enjoys doing. So if we
Mm-hmm.
can free them up and get them to do stuff that's delivering real value to both the business and the customers, that's a much more fulfilling environment to work in.
I love it. And it's one of those things that, as small business owners, we do whine about. I have to do invoicing. I hate to have to do invoicing. Ugh, I have to follow up with potential clients. Oh my God, and all of these things. And those are obviously things that could be automated. And I'm raising my hand. I am one of those people that says ugh to all of those things. And I know I should be automated, even if, my business is fairly small. But, talk to us about why it for whether you are a business like me, that's one person, or somebody that has 100,000 employees, why really do we need to be automating things?
Yeah, so there's probably a few reasons, but the key things that stand out for me is, on the one hand, it makes it so much easier to provide a reliable, consistent service to your customers if you have automation in place. It also reduces very much the level of training that you need to give someone in order for them to be a contributing member of your team, rather than, and also if you have those systems in place, it frees your team up to get involved when decisions have to be made. Because, for instance, you have to invoice someone or you have to follow up with something. There's, to a large extent, most of the time, there are no decisions to be made there.
Right.
It's just,
you
just
bill them a
needs to
flat
do-
fee, things like that.
And therefore, you may as well hand it off to a piece of software, which is extremely good at not making decisions and just following the rules, so that the humans in the business can actually go on and do the valuable things. And that time saving is also then enhanced by the fact that a lot of businesses do things the way they're doing it because it's the way they're doing it.
Right.
Not because it's the best way to do it. And it's
This
because
is the way we've always done it.
Sally showed John how to do it, and John showed Mark how to do it. Sally's not there anymore. Nobody can remember why Sally
Why does
decided
Sally
that this,
even start doing it that way?
Yeah, why is it there? And if we can just step back and actually create processes and do the automation, then it becomes a lot easier for people to fall into their positions, to do the work, but then actually focus on what's important. And then, I mean, depending on the size of your business, this scales quite dramatically. It's a simple cost-saving exercise because, yes, there's an investment, either time or money at the front end to get these things in place. But so you can do this calculation. So I talk about the cancer of 2-minute tasks. If you can automate a 2-minute task, you save 2 minutes. It's not a big deal. No, and that's why we never start doing it, because we think
it only takes me 2 minutes to do it.
But I forget that I'm doing it 10 times a day.
It's 20 minutes.
And then I forget, well, actually, I'm doing it 10 times a day as 20 minutes, but there are 10 people on my team doing this. So 200 times a day. Now we're at 1,000 times a week. And when that all rolls out, you actually end up having, and just to point out, if you don't employ 10 people, you still have the same calculations in your business, because there's not only one 2-minute task to be done. But you very quickly get to a point where over the course of the year, you are actually spending quite easily the equivalent of 104 8-hour working days just doing these 2-minute tasks. So by doing that time and or money investment to automate these things, if you could release an additional 104 days of working capacity in your business without having to employ additional staff, you'd bite my hand off for it. Right. But it's because we think we only see the 2-minute task and think, well, I'll just quickly do that, and then you carry on. So there's so many reasons from my perspective at least, to do this, that just, it frees up time, it generates money, it frees up money. And it's not the driver, the way that I look at it, it is not so that you can get rid of the people in your business, but it's really to give them an environment where they can do really meaningful work and contribute and deliver value.
You know, and in your book, you talk about the fact that many times people go, well, that's great, but it won't work for my business. And of course, the key is, it works for every business. Like I said, I mean, invoicing, great example for me. I'm a small business, got these invoices that have to go out. And I use, online, I use QuickBooks. I'm small enough that I use QuickBooks. But once a month, I would have to stop everything, and I'd have to send myself reminders. I set them up in my calendar, otherwise I forgot. And they're like, was last month free? I'm like, oh gosh. And you're
lucky if they raise their hand.
Yeah. And that's real professional, right? When your client has to remind you to invoice. And so then you drop everything, which, that's, and then you go off and you do those invoices. And, and then same thing the next month. Oh God, I got to do the invoices. And so I automated my invoicing through QuickBooks. Took me a couple tries, and luckily my clients were very patient with me, because sometimes it emailed them, sometimes they forgot, what format did they want, because there's different things that they get in all of these things. But now it happens all by itself. I get the email, so I know, oh, this got done. But yeah, I mean, that was to set it up. Like I said, it took a little bit of time for me to figure it out and tweak it and do all of those things. But, it freed up so many things. It freed up me having to remember, freed up me looking stupid. And again, it just automates it, and away it goes. I can be off being barefoot somewhere and not have to be worrying about it.
Yeah. And I think there's a couple of things that hold people back from giving it a go. The one is they think, well, if I'm going to automate my business, I have to automate all of my business in order to get value from it, which on the one hand isn't true, and on the other hand isn't possible, because there will always be things that aren't automated in your business. But also you don't know what your business will need a year from now. So it's something that you have to make peace with, that it is never finished, and that it's just an ongoing process of optimization once you start.
Right.
So you can do little chunks, but you can then take those little chunks. So look at your invoicing process. People might say, well, actually, I don't want to automate that, because what if it goes wrong and it sends the wrong invoice to the wrong place?
Or forgets to invoice them.
Yeah. So, well, automate 90% of it. So automate the adding of the contact to your accounting software. So nobody needs to do double data entry, because every time an email gets typed in, it's an opportunity for it to be wrong.
Right.
Automate the generation of the invoice as and when it needs to be, but not the sending.
Right. So I could double check it before.
And then just a task to say, hey, here's an invoice to review and send. So then you've taken a snapshot window in your process that you now don't need to think about. And when you get the reminder saying, hey, there's an invoice to review and send, you can go in, review it. Yeah, that's right, send. And if there's anything wrong with it, then you can take a step back and say, okay, well, what's wrong in my process that caused this to happen? What input did the system not have to cause this to happen? And then you build on it that way. And then you get to a point where you're like, well, okay, I'm completely comfortable with this.
Right. It's gone right for 3 months or whatever.
Yeah. We'll send them as well. And then you've now got that chunk. And every process in your business can be broken down like that. And that's why the whole thing, I hear a lot, my business is too complex. It's like, well, no, it's not. Because I use the example in the book, Porsche, make the 911, and you can have it any color you want. It comes with just the engine options. There are 22 different options available.
Oi.
And that's let alone all the other bits and pieces. But they still manage to do thousands of these cars every month off the production line. And most people listening to this, I can't imagine that your business is more complex than building and making a Porsche 911.
Right.
So if they can do it, and it's because you first just look at the straight line and you say, okay, what process do all my customers have to go through? Well, that is, a prospect needs to come in, we have a meeting, we agree a price, we do the work, we invoice. So those are the milestones. Everyone in business has to go through that, regardless of what your business is. And then you just start filling in the little links and the bridges and the variations. But it's not, and yes, if you then a year down the line, you look at it thinking, well, that's really complex. And yes, it is. But because you've never had to look at the whole thing and try and build the whole thing in one sitting, it's actually much easier to achieve.
Right. And I think, we've got that, and, and as we said, we've got the people who think they're too small, and again, just simple little things that you can automate. And then we've got the people who see it go bad, I love it when I get emails, dear first name here. Right.
Well, that always just reminds you there is still a human somewhere on the other end.
Yes, that looked at that and went, oh crap. Right, because I'm sure at least one person said, that's not my first name. And hopefully it wasn't their boss, but yeah, or what I really don't like is, I accept somebody's request to connect on LinkedIn, and then 30 seconds later, I get a sales pitch from them.
Yeah.
I don't mind getting an automated response that says, hey, it's great to know you. I look forward to seeing your posts. That's fine. And I know that's an automated pitch. I mean, I'm cool with that. But when it just sleeps in, or worse, I had this happen one time with someone, fairly good business associate friend type of person. And for some reason, we weren't connected on LinkedIn. And so I sent her a request to connect, and I got the automated response. It is so nice to virtually meet you, blah, 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 blah. And I was offended. And I sent her a note and I said, hey, what gives? Do you honestly not remember me? I was hurt. It was like she admitted, she said, oh, it's all automated. And I said, well, I got to tell you, it was offensive to me.
Yeah.
And she said, I never thought of that. And,
so that comes in again with automating partials of these processes.
Right.
So let's say, for instance, you've come off a sales call with someone. Well, it's only courteous to send an email.
Right. Thank you so much. Great call.
Yeah. And then you say, well, I can't automate that because what happens is it that the outcome of the call was, well, we've decided not to work together. We've decided to speak again in 2 weeks' time, or we've decided to go ahead and I'll send an invoice over. Well, you don't have to automate all of it.
Right.
You just create 3 email templates with the details around that, but one paragraph that you type.
Right.
So then when you hang up the phone, you pull up the template, you type 2 lines and you click send. Because
looking forward to chatting again in 2 weeks.
Yeah. Yeah. And then you can also have it that, okay, there's a template with additional information and attachments and everything that all you had to do was write that one line and click send. So the one line clarifies that there was some personal interaction, but the rest of it, the attachments you might want to send after a sales call, is pretty much the same for everyone because it's further information until we speak again in 2 weeks. So, and that then does 2 things. One, you write 1 line instead of 5 paragraphs. You don't have to remember, and more often than not forget, to attach the files that you wanted to send.
And then that's embarrassing. Oh, golly, forgot to.
Yeah, because the text will mention, oh, I see the attachment. But if you just you minimize the opportunity for error, but you still keep a manual aspect to that process, and that overcomes that risk of automating something that's then inappropriate for the conversation you've just had. And I think it's just focusing on little levers like that you can pull that just makes a real difference.
Right. And I love having templates, whether you've got an automated software system or just a Word document that's got a bunch of stuff in it.
Copy and paste.
Yeah. And because you copy and paste, you're remembering, okay, well, this is what I need to say. Hopefully you've eliminated the grammatical errors, the typos, the things like that. And I've got several of those, when people send in a request and say, hey, we want to be a guest on the program. I've got one that I copy, I paste, and I have to I personalize it. So it says, hi, Peter, and then I, thank you so much for submitting. Here's our process, blah, blah, blah. Let us know if you've got any questions. Boom. And so the nice thing is I can do it right away. I can stop and I can send it. If I have to write it, I'm going to think, I'll do that later.
Yeah.
And then
that's you find it's 3 days later or it's 5 days later.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And then it's embarrassing and we don't send it, right? Because we're like, oops,
because what's that window? At what point?
Is
it too late
or do you
reply?
act like, I love the ones that I get now and they're clearly spam, but they're trying to trick me. And I get them on the phone and I get them both as emails following up on our recent on the recent email I sent you. So they're, or the recent call.
Yeah.
They're trying to make me feel like, oh gosh, I missed something. Right.
Yeah.
And there have been times where I've been tempted to do that too. It's like, okay, let's just act like I sent it to them. And, did you get this? And we're humans. I mean, if I send something and say, this got lost in my spam folder, I was on vacation or whatever, people are like, yeah, whatever. But yeah, it's just one of those things. And I mean, it's a simple process when you've got the same thing that you say to multiple people, save it, and cut and paste, and that's
the value of it just grows so much as soon as even if you just take on one additional team member, because now they can use the template and all they have to focus on is the bit they add in. You don't have to teach them when to send all the other things. Just pick the right template and away you go. And it's finding those opportunities in the business to just make everyone's life a bit easier and speed things up, not so much so that you necessarily can get more done, but it's just a better way to run a business. It's just more efficient and less stressful.
Right. Especially at the start of the process, because a lot of that really is just the, hey, thank you. Here's what we talked about type of thing. But I don't even know the stat anymore where, and it's probably changed a bit, especially with COVID, because we don't actually go network a lot in person, all those things that, it is more than 50% though. We never follow up. We get the business card, we get the email, we get the whatever. And we, for whatever reason, we just don't follow up. And, that's business potentially lost. And that's the, and so we all know we're bad. We got to do this, but it's taking that start. And I'll tell you, one of the biggest things I think is, it's going to take me so long to set it up.
Yeah, I get that. But it's like anything we do. Yes, the first time you try to set something like that up, it'll take you longer than the next time. And the next time will be longer than the time after that. Right. But it'll, the tools that you use to do this, you'll only get more and more familiar with them. And it's also, I think, the reason I would encourage people to just start with something small and then the next really small thing is, I think a lot of the time people don't do it in their businesses because they don't actually know what's possible.
Right.
They don't know. So I was talking to someone.
Especially small businesses, we think, that is just for a big business.
Yeah, we think it's like it's for Amazon or whatever. And it's like when the automation and everything that companies like that have is impressive, but equivalent tools are available to all of us. And it's like, for instance, one tool that we use heavily in our business is Zapier. And I love it. On a Monday morning, normally I get an email from Zapier saying this week, done 2,500 tasks,
Mm-hmm.
was done. And those are 2,500 things that needed to be done, but it doesn't mean anyone on our team had to do it.
Right.
And for the, I don't know, $130 a month that I pay Zapier,
Mm-hmm.
I can't find, there's no other way I can get 2,500 things done a week.
You could hire a college student but then have to oversee him the whole time.
Yeah. And as much as we might love other people sometimes, they're just not reliable. Not as reliable as a system can be.
Mm-hmm.
But I was talking to someone and they run a marketing agency, and every marketing agency, new project comes on,
mm-hmm.
like, okay, we have to go on something like Dropbox or Google Drive, create
mm-hmm.
a new client folder, mm-hmm. and then everything gets thrown in there. And depending on who the project lead is, everyone throws it in a different way, and it's
mm-hmm.
a right mess. But you can very easily automate it. At the moment you say, yeah, this person is now a client,
mm-hmm.
automation creates the client folder with
mm-hmm.
the client ID and the client name. So there's a naming convention. And then the automation creates the subfolders for mm-hmm. photos, copy, videos, mm-hmm. files, whatever it needs to be.
Basic things, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And then what happens, the additional benefit to that is whenever someone's looking for a video mm-hmm. for an ad campaign, they know exactly where to find it because the naming convention and the filing structure is the same for every client. So all I need to know is the client's name,
right?
And then I know where to go and find it. So there's no, oh, can you tell, leaning over to the other person, can mm-hmm. you tell me where's this, or mm-hmm. emailing someone and saying I can't find this, mm-hmm. anything like that, and those little micro moments of saving time and efficiency, again, just scale over a business over the course of a year mm-hmm. and benefits massively.
Well, and it's funny when you said, you go and ask somebody, hey, where's this? You usually don't just say, hey, Peter, where's that file? It's, hey, Peter, I've been looking for that file. And oh my gosh, did you see such and such on TV last night? And then whoop, away you go.
Yeah, so it's the 10 minutes I took to look for the file before I decided, well, I'm going to ask you. And then mm-hmm. it's the conversation that comes. And it's also, there's a really good book, Algorithms to Live By.
Mm-hmm.
And it goes all about our brain processes and,
mm-hmm.
and data
mm-hmm.
and things like that. But one of the studies that they did is we talk about 2-minute tasks.
Mm-hmm.
But if you are focused on doing something and someone interrupts you just for mm-hmm. 2 minutes,
mm-hmm.
it actually takes another 17 minutes before you get back to the level of focus you had before you were interrupted.
Right.
So every
Those
time
squirrels are fun, but
yeah. And every time someone leans over to ask you a question, that is happening. You come out of your focus and then you have to find your way back down to it. We think we just go back to the thing we were doing, but mm-hmm. it's never actually as smooth a transition as that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because along that way you think, I'm going to stop and check emails. Oh, I got a text from, and it's funny. I long ago, when I was still in corporate America, I would not take breaks. I just kept eating, I'd work at my desk, all those things. And my boss didn't like it, and I saw her point, because one of the things she was telling me was, it's good for you to take that break, to walk around. Plus, the other employees went, but I told her, I said, when I have to stop my train of thought and go eat, go do whatever, and then come back, it takes me so much longer. I said, so I am a better employee because I do that. Now, I didn't win that battle. She told me I had to, I saw her point. I mean, but yeah, it when I would have to stop that train of thought and go do other things. I mean, sometimes I wouldn't even go back to what I was originally working on because I got so sidetracked that it was like, what was I doing this morning?
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, it is. It can happen.
Mm-hmm.
But no, we try as much as we can to have these things in place. So another really good reason to use tools for mm-hmm. automation and systems, and that is mm-hmm. that it gives you that dashboard. Mm-hmm. So for us in our product, we the aim is to get the numbers down to 0.
Mhm.
So you log in on a Monday morning and it tells you you've got to call so many people, you've got to send these emails. And the aim is to get the number on the widget down to 0. And then you know, well, you've done what you had to do. And then you can get stuck into the distractions of the day and open your email and everything. But it just makes it really easy because you can see whether you're making progress or not. Because we find ourselves a lot in business. You get to the end of the day and you feel you've been really busy.
But you don't know what you did.
Yeah. If someone asked you at the end of the day, what progress did you make today, rather than what did you get done, there's two very different answers. Because yes, here are the 25 tasks I completed on my task list. But any progress? No. Because they were just these little tasks that needed to get done and nothing of value.
Right. And we also talked about the fact that a lot of those tasks that can be automated, when we do them ourselves, we are overqualified for them. Doing, say, database entry or invoices or things like that is not the best use of my time. It's funny. I have what I call the 15-minute rule. If it's going to take me more than 15 minutes, that's taking away from what I should be doing, then I need to delegate it. Website development, great thing. I love tinkering on my websites. I think it's great fun. Usually I break it, and then we really have problems. But it really, that's not a good use of my time. If it's something I can go in and do in less than 15 minutes, fine, I can do it. But if it's something that's going to take longer, I need to outsource it. Because they're not, hopefully I pick the people who don't break it, and I'm able to go off and do what else I'm supposed to be doing to make it the money so that they can be doing stuff.
Yeah. No, it's funny, especially in small businesses, we are so guilty often of feeling, well, if it needs to be done, I have to do it.
Right. I'm the only one that can do it the right way.
Yeah, but those same business owners, when the heating breaks down, they call a heating engineer.
Right.
They don't go to the shop and buy a bunch of tools and says, I'm going to have a crack at this. But for some reason, we get into our businesses and we think, well, no, I'm going to go and buy a 12 video course and learn how to do this myself. But for some reason in our businesses, we feel that's the way things should be done. Right. Whereas your car breaks down, especially modern cars. I mean, I laugh when I see someone on the side of the road with a hood up. Because it's just like, it's not like you know what you've got no idea what's going on in there. You don't even know
what the parts are, let alone how to fix them. I mean, I might be able to pick out the battery, but
I can see whether the wipers need filling up or anything like that.
I can see there's a hole spurting something out, but I don't know what it is.
So I think that's another thing to encourage people to just sort of look at it and say, well, where are my skills? And I like your 15-minute rule, because if it's just quickly doing something, fine, quickly do something if you need to. And especially we're very focused on the things that need to be done frequently. Things that are not the outliers.
Right.
That you think, well, if I have 100 customers, I'm going to have to do this 100 times. Well, find a way to only do it twice so that you know what it is and automate it and then move on to the next thing, rather than feeling, well, actually, no, I need to learn exactly how to do this and go from there.
Right. And it is hard sometimes to give up those tasks. I have a producer for this podcast. Love her. She's the greatest thing in the world. I think we're getting ready to start our 4th year of working together. And, and I'd had a couple before that didn't work. And then I finally figured out the process of treat it, I need a job description. I need all those various things. And so one of the things that I had said was, here are the templates, like you were saying before, of the emails that I would send to potential guests, to current guests, to past guests. Those were kind of the categories they came into. And I said, but as long as you have the general information in there, feel free to redo it to what works better for you, especially because she's the person working with them. So if she gets the same question over and over again, then she knows to put that in there. But I tell you, turning loose of that was just was like, but I mean, she's freed up several hours in my week to do that. And is it stuff I could do? Sure. I mean, we can all do those things, but yeah, it's like we said, it's better to have someone else do it. And I tell you, she does a better job at it than I did. And that's the other key.
That's the thing when you start actually. So we like to go through a process where you say, okay, for a week, you just write down, and it sounds tedious and time consuming, but over the long haul, it is so worth it. But for a week, you just have a pad of paper by your desk, and every 15 minutes, just write down what you've been doing. Now, of course, if you do something for 45 minutes, you just tick off that you're still doing the same thing. But you just mark that just for a week. Don't do anything else. Don't think about it. Don't worry about it. Just note down what you're doing. And then at the end of the week, you start looking at it and you say, okay, out of these things on the list, just mark the ones that you are uniquely skilled to do. And then everything else is either delegated to someone else, put automation in place to either do it or to allow for it to be eliminated, because there's lots of stuff we do in our business because we're doing something else. Well, if we can automate the something else, then here's 3 things I don't need to do anymore. So if you can do that, and then it's a process of, okay, who do I give this to? And you find that with everyone in your organization, there are things they are really skilled at doing. Get them to focus on that and move the other things around, because you may find, well, actually, there's a chunk of stuff that I've been hogging to myself and I'm doing. But there's actually someone in my business where for them, it's their key skill.
Right. They rock at it.
Yeah. And they love doing it. Whereas I'm doing it because it needs to be done. It's like, great, there you go. Now you do all of that. And I've now freed up an extra 2 hours where I can focus on what I'm really good at doing. It reminds me, there's a guy over here who was coaching the cycling team over here, and they talk about the marginal gains. So for the British Olympic cycling team, they ended up, wherever they toured, taking their own pillows with them. Because it's a really small thing, it's a marginal gain, but if you get to sleep the night before a race on the pillow that you sleep on every night at home, just physically for your body, the familiarity and everything like that, there's that benefit to it. And
kind of like a child wants their blankie.
Yeah, it's to an extent it's that, and just try and keep as many variables in control as you can, but make those marginal gains, and they all just add up to, I don't know, record-breaking gold medals and everything. It's not, you don't achieve that level of success and efficiency and proficiency because of 2 or 3 really big things.
Right.
And it's the same in our business. If we can just work on these little small, on enough of the small things, then we actually achieve an awful lot more.
Right. And we've been talking about, obviously automating, and in your book, you talk about there's really just 3 key systems that we should automate. Of course, they're the biggies, but it's, it is lead generation, client acquisition, and then client fulfillment. So let's talk more about those and why, and kind of some of the little parts in there that we can automate.
Yeah. So that the clarity around those 3 things, I have to give credit where it's due. I was fortunate enough a few years ago to be in a one-day mastermind group with Michael Gerber, who wrote the email. And the morning was a monologue, and then the afternoon he dug into all our businesses, and he was just very, very clear on what we should be doing, and very helpful. And it's really, and I also say in the book that you really should read the book twice. Once, just read through it and then come back, but implement the book in reverse. Because so we've got lead generation system, client acquisition, and client fulfillment. And what happens a lot of the time is we think our businesses aren't progressing the way we want them to because we don't have enough leads. But the reality is, for a lot of businesses, they have more than enough leads.
Right.
It's just most of them fall through the cracks.
Like we said, you never bother to respond to them.
Yeah. So you almost start at the far end, at the client fulfillment system, and say, okay, if I were to get a customer, this is what needs to happen. Put that in place, and that can be, so for instance, going back to the marketing example, well, when a client comes on board, we want to add their details to the accounting system. We want to add their folder and subfolders to our Google Drive and send them a link to say, hey, here's the shared folder. Anything you need to give us, just put it in the appropriate folder here. We can assign team members, create a project in our project management platform, however that is done. And if we can systemize and automate as much of that as possible, it generates capacity in the business to deal with all the leads we say we need, and have that. And then, well, actually, we've filled in some cracks there and we're good. And then you step back and you say, okay, client acquisition. And that's really from the point where someone has raised their hand and said, I'm interested in what you're doing. And no more than that. They've just said, I have an interest of varying degree in what you do. From that point up to money changing hands. For me, that's the client acquisition part of the business. And its job is to take people from being leads to actually being customers. And again, you've got the same process. Well, a lead has come into the system. At least an initial follow-up email can go out, which everyone knows is automated, and it's fine. But then also automate creating a task for someone to give them a call within a couple of hours, ideally, or depending on the business, within 24 hours. And then there's a follow-up from that and reminders, and there's then processes around that to guide them to the money changing hands. And then obviously at the front end of that is the lead generation, which is anything and everything you do that gets people to raise their hand and say, I have an interest in what you're doing. And of course, there's loads of things that can be there, but ideally, whenever someone raises their hand, they should drop into your CRM system, and people should know about it, and everything goes from there. Right. And of course, that front end to the business can have many doors. Like you said, networking earlier. Well, you come back from a networking event with a bunch of business cards, Facebook ad, Google ads, email marketing, whatever it is that you're doing, print advertising. They all really, the aim of all those, they're just doors, lots of doors into the same room. And it's really, all of them is designed to get someone to say, I'm interested.
Here's my name and email.
Yeah, yeah. And that's all it is. And from there on, it's then, okay, they're in the client acquisition. So it's really, and yes, in reality, below that sits a level of systems, which is your whatever marketing platforms you're using, your CRM system, your accounting, your proposal system. And then, of course, there's the doing of what you do, which is, for some people, it's sat at a desk. For some people, it's out in a workshop. But, and I understand that there is a layer of complexity below those three key systems. But if we just start off by thinking of our businesses conceptually as having these three sections, it makes it much easier to then say, well, okay, in which section am I trying to achieve this goal? Where is this person out of those three? Because it's very different what's required for client acquisition compared to client fulfillment.
Right.
And urgency, frequency of communication, or whatever it needs to be. But it's just, if you can pinpoint and say, well, actually, currently we've got 75 people in lead generation, we've got 25 people in client acquisition, and we've got 17 people in client fulfillment. And being able to sort of, a bit like the dashboard on a car, being able to see that's where we are.
Right.
It just makes it a lot easier to manage.
You know, and it's interesting when I've talked to people who have gone through processes like this. One of the things that they have discovered is they thought that there was a lot more human touch that was needed, when really an email or something like that is sufficient because of the other person's time. You
Yeah.
know, I just want an email that tells me, here's a link to this brochure. I don't want to talk to somebody for 15 minutes about it.
Yeah.
You know, and so that's the other tricky part, is letting go of some of those things and knowing when it is appropriate to have that human interaction.
Yeah, because it also and that's why it depends on where you are in those three systems, and also it in reality it depends on how much am I going to spend as a customer.
Mhm.
Because if every customer is buying a $3 trinket from you,
Mhm.
you can't afford to speak to them.
No. Mhm.
It's not appropriate. It's
Mhm.
not expected from 99% of
Oh
the
yeah, I'd
people
be
who might
bothered.
buy
I'm
from
like,
you
what?
anyway. Yeah, I don't bring me. I'm fine.
Mhm.
Whereas if you're asking someone to spend $20,000, well, you're going to have to speak to them at least once.
Mhm. Right. Yeah, they're probably not going to just give you
Yeah,
$20,000.
yeah. There are few things that we will just hand over 20 grand and not ask any questions. So it's looking at it. The other thing that you made me think of is when business owners go through this, I always see there's a real sort of realization of the fact that they had no idea how their business worked.
Right.
They thought they knew how their
Even if
business
it's
worked.
just them, right?
Yeah. They don't act that once they start mapping it out, it's like, oh yes, that's why this keeps going wrong.
Yeah.
And it's even worse. You employ 5 people.
Mhm.
If you don't have a system, you've actually got 5 systems.
Right. Because they're all doing it the way that works for them.
Yeah. Rather than the way it works for the business or the customer.
Right. You know, and that's always a little tricky thing, you know, because people are like, well, I don't want to say how I do it because then somebody else could do it. But yeah, you know, it's, you know, we are all expendable. You know, and it's funny. I tell people, you know, I kind of like to operate on the hit by a bus theory. If I get hit by a bus, can somebody else do what I do?
Yeah.
You know, or more importantly, if I want to go on vacation, can somebody else do what I do? You know, and
I prefer the second option.
yes, oh yes, most definitely. You know, and I think that's, you know, that's the theory behind, you know, like the 4-day work week or the 4-hour work day. I mean, you know, we've seen books that have talked about things like that. It's not that you're not doing stuff; it's that stuff is being done without your direct input.
Yeah. Which I think it took me a long time, and my brother who's in the business with me, it took him a long time as well, because our background growing up is if you don't work for it, if you don't physically hurt at the end of the day,
right,
you didn't work for what you got. It's just the way we grew up, because it was a different time and place. Whereas now it's, well, actually no, I can deliver my value in 2 hours. I don't have to stretch it out for 8. If I've delivered the value, so for instance, I've just came back this week from 5 days in Denmark, in Copenhagen, and I got up in the morning and did 2 hours work, and then I spend the rest of the day with my wife. And the team's working, and we get just as much done as we do any other week. They don't need me to be there constantly saying, "How are you getting on? Have you done this? Do you need to do that?" or anything. They're completely competent, and I can leave them to do it. But it's a muscle we have to practice as business owners.
Well, and sometimes it's hard to trust people. And I think that's been one of, one of the things with everybody who's all of a sudden gone virtual. You know, but what do you mean? I can't lean over their shoulder and look at them and things like that. And I remember I told one person, I said, do you trust them when you're leaning over their shoulder? Then you should be able to trust them when they're home. And I said, but if you're leaning over their shoulder because you don't trust them, then that's a different problem. You know, and so I think that's been kind of one of the realizations that people have come to. But, you know, I'm remembering I had a guest on one time, and he was an absolutely wonderful man. And he said, my goal is that I have this great company and I never have to go in. You know, he said, because I empower my employees, I trust my employees, and I know that they're going to do what's right. And if somebody contacts me, it's because they absolutely need me.
Yeah.
You know, and he said that, you know, he goes in because he loves it and things like that. But he said that really should be the goal is, you know, you're out doing whatever. And, you know, or maybe it is that you're out there being the rainmaker, getting the business, giving the programs, all of those things. But yeah, you've delegated, you've automated.
Yeah, it's also I really like I've heard him say it a few times in interviews, Jeff Bezos, where he has said that as the head of a business, you're not there to make 100 decisions and to do 100 things. If you can make 2 or 3 really good decisions a day, that's fine. That's your role. And I think we all sort of have to grow from. I never forget Michael Gerber. He talks about doing it. And it's quite funny when he speaks. Every time he says it 3 or 4 times. But it is we have to train ourselves to come away from. I have to do everything and know exactly what's going on every moment of the day, to saying, well, actually, my business is this machine that I'm operating. Because it was like, imagine driving a car and you have to keep track of where all the pistons are, how fast the gears are spinning, everything like that. You wouldn't get off the driveway.
No.
But as long as you've got the dashboard, the steering wheel, and the gear stick, you're fine. And I think we want to look at our businesses the same way.
Right. Well, you know, we don't have a lot of time left, and I wanted to talk about something that I saw on your website, and that is your business philosophy of doing good. So tell us more about that, because I think that is absolutely fantastic.
Yeah, so this is inspired by a couple of things. The one is Mark Benioff, who's the founder of Salesforce, who his big drive is that the business of business is to do good in the world and to make the world a better place. So we've done a thing right from the start for us is we took the 1% pledge. And what that means is 1% of our revenue right now, not when we're a $100 million company, but right now, 1% of our revenue every week goes to a couple of good causes that we've chosen to support. So we do it through an organization called B1G1, which is Buy One, Give One. So what that does is they have lots of initiatives aligned to the UN goals, and we can then choose, well, I want to support this kind of thing or that kind of thing. So for us, for instance, we do mosquito nets in Kenya. Some of our money goes towards that, and then some goes towards literacy education for Dalit girls in India. So, and whenever our business is subscription based, and whenever we process, as in the system that's in place, processes a payment on behalf of a client, they get an email thanking them for, depending on their bill, how many nets they sent or how many days education they've paid for. And the great thing is, it's a real driver for everyone in the business, because yes, the more money the business makes, great, we can all get paid more and the business grows, and that's really good. But the reality is, proportionately to the business growth, our impact on those 2 good causes and anything else we choose to support in the future grows at the same rate. So every time one of our customers adds a new user to the software, there's more mosquito nets, less malaria, and more education for girls. So that's really what we're doing with that.
I love it. You know, and 1% doesn't sound like a lot, but it does add up. You know, and so I love it. So it's interesting. I was sitting here thinking, who would I support, or what organization? You know, and so I love that. And maybe, you know, folks, as we're, you know, starting 2022, think about that. You know, what organization would you support? And again, whether you're the one person in your spare bedroom, or, you know, the multi-million-dollar company, you know, what would you do with that 1%?
Yeah. And it's just, it's a great focus point. Once you realize, well, actually, no, every time I bill someone, that is happening. And it was great for me. It's maybe a couple of months ago now that I could send an email to our team saying, thanks to all the hard work that you're doing for our customers. and I could send to the customers as well, because on the B1G1 you pay for impacts, and then different impacts have different effects. But when I send the email, we had just gone past our first 1,000 impacts that we were able to make, and it's just great to see that grow, and it's a very positive point of focus.
Right. I love it. Well, oh my gosh, Peter, we are almost done. You mentioned a key thing that I want to come back to, and that's subscription service. So tell us more about what Macanta does.
Yeah, so Macanta is really a platform or a tool that allows small to big businesses to create a custom CRM system with business process management and automation, but it's completely no code. So Macanta, a good way to describe it is it's a tub of Lego blocks. And then you can decide, am I going to build a square house with a flat roof, or am I going to build Starship Enterprise? And because it's Lego blocks, you and I know from experience that our businesses will not be the same 6 months from now to what it is today. And therefore, Macanta allows you to just add more Lego blocks or take one out and swap it for a different block and do that. And it's automation around tasks, lead assignment, and whether you're creating alerts, emails, SMS, data update, data setting. But it's quite a strong package, and one of our key differentiators between CRMs and what Macanta does is CRMs generally tends to be contact centric. Name and email address, gets into a campaign, waits for 3 days, sends an email, and
then you get another email, and then somewhere in there you get that dear first name. But
the problem is, if you take, for instance, let's take real estate as an example. It's really the property that goes through a process. It's not the person. Yes, I might be my relationship to the property is that I'm selling it. Your relationship might be that you're the agent. And then there are 5 people who have a relationship of having viewed the property. One of them changes relationship to having placed an offer. And you want to drive automation and processes around the property and those relationships. And that's what Macanta allows you to do. And just to clarify, it's not a CRM for real estate. I just use that as an example because we all know about buying, selling, or renting properties. But we've got lawyers using it, and in their instance, it's a case with everything around it, or electrical contracting projects or anything like that. But it just means you can manage those things with the intelligence of those relationships involved.
I love it. I love it. Well, how do they find out more information about what you do?
So a couple of ways. One way, just go to macantacrm.com and get in touch with us there. Or you can just find me on LinkedIn. I'm quite easy to track down. And any questions, anything, more than happy to help, more than happy to have a chat and see how we can help.
Perfect. I love it. And, maybe that's a New Year's resolution that people who are listening to this or watching need to do, is to think about, what can we automate? Let's make things simpler for ourselves and make more money.
Yes, don't forget.
That is the key to all of this.
Yeah.
Well, Peter, do you have any final thoughts for everyone?
I think what I'll do is you can see there's half a quote on the wall over there that actually reads behind me. It reads, "Where is the gorilla?" So I'll leave you, if you go on YouTube, "Where is the gorilla?" You'll see what that's about. But then on the other side of my office, there's also a quote on the wall, and it's from a friend of mine. I was in a mastermind group with him, and we were struggling with an issue, and he then just came up and with the genius question of just saying, can you solve a different problem? And just the context of that was just, well, okay, this is the thing you're struggling with, but is there another problem that you haven't looked at that you can solve that will mean this one isn't relevant anymore? And I think if you get stuck on anything, whether it's this topic we've talked about or just business in general or anything, just keep that question in mind. Just, can you solve a different problem if you hit a dead end?
Cool.
I think I'll leave you with that.
I love it. I love it. Well, be sure to check out Peter's book, Barefoot Business. It is, there will be a link to it in the show notes. I am Deb Kerr. I've been having a fascinating discussion with Pieter de Villiers. And until next time, everyone have a great day.
Tune in for our next program for even more trends, best practices, and techniques for how to make your business a success. The Business Power Hour, hosted by Deb Creer, is proud to be part of the C-Suite Network.